Hello students, welcome to today's lecture on compiler design. So today we will start the fourth unit, which is about how to generate intermediate codes as part of the phase of one of the phases of compiler. So these are the topics that we are going to cover in this unit. We will start with various ways of representing the intermediate codes. We'll go through the first possibility as syntax trees and the variants of syntax trees, and then we discuss about several types of three address code representations, and with the help of these three address code representations we will see how to represent several constructs of a programming language, such as type declarations, translation of expressions, type checking, and control flow statements. And finally, we discuss about backpatching technique, which can be applied on these intermediate codes. So this is the syllabus for your fourth unit. So let us begin the chapter. So what exactly this intermediate code representation, where it lies in the phases of compiler. So we all know that compiler phases can be divided into two parts. One is front end of the compiler, and the second one is back end of the compiler. This phase, intermediate code generation phase, acts as an interface between front end of the compiler and back end of the compiler. So the reason for using this phase is uh, back end of the compiler, as we all know that it is machine dependent, and the front end of the compiler is machine independent. So we need uh, an optimization mechanism to be applied on front end side also. That means before we actually generate the machine code, if we can apply optimization technique on the corresponding intermediate code, then it will be useful for us. So that is the basic purpose of using this phase, intermediate code generation. So that is the reason why it acts as an interface between the front end of the compiler and back end of the compiler. So with the help of this phase, what we can achieve is we can apply the code optimization before even it is converted into the machine code also. So with this phase, there are two types of code optimization possible. One is machine independent code optimization, which we achieve through this intermediate code, which we apply on these intermediate codes. And then after generating the machine codes also, we can perform that code optimization technique in backend of the compiler. Okay, so that is the benefit that we are going to get with this intermediate code generation phase. Okay, and if you look at the types of intermediate languages that we are going to use, there are actually many, but in our syllabus we are going to learn about few types of intermediate code generation or techniques. The first one is polish notation, which is also known as postfix representation, and reverse polish notation, and other forms are there. So we are going to focus on this only because it is available in our syllabus. And the second one we are going to learn is three address codes, and several types of three address code representations, such as triple, quadruple, and indirect triple. We will learn all this. And high level representations in the form of trees, as abstract syntax trees, TCOL, Diana, and directed acyclic graphs, and so on. In our syllabus, we have abstract syntax trees and directed acyclic graphs. So we will cover these two topics. And machine dependent virtual codes, which are also called as virtual machine codes, such as P code, EM code, U code, and byte codes. We are not going to cover this point because it is purely dependent on a particular programming language that we select. So as you all know that byte codes are used by Java, right? Similarly, these are also used with other languages, and we are not going to concern this. So we'll cover these two types, these three forms of intermediate languages: Polish notation, three address codes, and tree structure codes. Okay, so let us begin with one by one. The first notation is the postfix notation. This is the earliest representation of intermediate codes, which is specially applied with expressions, not applied on other kind of expressions, only arithmetic expressions and some other kinds of programming constructs can be converted into postfix whenever it is necessary. So the definition can be recursively given like this. If assume that E is an expression, then if E is a variable or a constant, then its postfix notation is going to be same. Okay, so there is no change. If it is a either a variable or a constant, then its postfix notation will be same. Or if this is an expression of the form like this, E1 operator E2, then the postfix notation will be E1 E2 followed by OP. So what is the change here? Operator moves to the end of the expression. Okay, so whenever you have, let us say, A plus B, then its corresponding postfix notation will be AB plus, like that. And this E1 and E2 must be postfix expressions again. That means if E1 is another sub expression, E2 is another sub expression, then first you need to convert E1 into postfix, E2 into postfix, then apply this postfix operation on E1 OP E2. Okay, so assuming that E1 and E2 are postfix expressions, then the postfix expression of E1 OP E2 is going to be E1 E2 OP. It's very simple. Might be you learned this in data structures also. Okay, and finally the third rule says that if E is an expression of the form uh, parenthesized E1, then the postfix notation for E1 is going to be same, whatever it is for E. Okay, so let us see these two examples. The first example is 9 minus 5 plus 2. First, you need to convert this 9 minus 5 into postfix notation. So it becomes 9 5 minus, and then after converting this, this becomes postfix expression 9 5 minus, and 2 is another expression. So apply this uh, 9 5 minus 2 followed by plus. So plus goes to last position. Similarly, another example is 9 minus 5 plus 2. So first you need to convert this because highest priority goes to parenthesis. 5 plus 2 is converted as 5 2 plus. Now 9 minus 5 2 plus will be minus goes to last position. That means 9 5 2 plus minus. Okay. So this is how you can use postfix notations to represent intermediate codes for the corresponding infix expressions. This is the earliest notation, and now it is not that useful. So we'll go through the other possible representations of intermediate codes. Now, the second way of representing intermediate codes is with the help of syntax trees. So we know that syntax tree represents the expressions while parsing the corresponding code, and syntax tree actually is not very efficient because it represents the expression exactly. Even if there are some common sub expressions also, we don't consider that common sub expressions. It will represent each sub expression as a separate entity. So we can see this here: b minus c, b minus c. There are actually two instances of the same sub-expression b minus c in this particular expression. If you look at the syntax tree, it represents both the instances of b minus c as separate entities in the syntax tree. Okay, and also actually uh, this common sub-expression, if you can separate it and represent it as a single entity, then it becomes a variant of syntax tree called as directed acyclic graph. So remember this name. Directed acyclic graph is a variant of syntax tree where it identifies the common sub-expressions. Common sub-expressions are nothing but the sub-expressions that occur more than once and represent that common sub-expressions as a single instance like this. So what is happening here? Actually, A is occurring twice. So A plus A into B minus C plus B minus C into C. You need to connect this B minus C whenever it is required in the expression into T. And the evaluation will be from left to right in the corresponding directed acyclic graph. Okay, so with this, what we benefit is the common sub-expressions are successfully represented as a single instance, and the conversion of this directed acyclic graph into intermediate codes when we use temporary variables will be very easy, as this b minus c will be stored into a single temporary variable which might be used with the other operations whenever it is required. So there is no need to use uh, temporary variables for every instance of b minus c, just like we represented in syntax tree. If this is the syntax tree we are following, then while converting, we require a temporary variable for this b minus c and another temporary variable for this b minus c. But with directed acyclic graph, we don't require several temporary variables for representing the same sub-expression. Single temporary variable will be useful, will be sufficient for representing common sub-expressions. So that is the biggest advantage we are going to get. The number of lines in the intermediate code will be vastly reduced with the directed acyclic graph. We'll see that later how this can be done. Okay, and we can write the syntax directed definition also for creating directed acyclic graphs. Earlier we saw how to generate the syntax trees with the help of syntax directed definitions by uh, writing the semantic rules along with the corresponding productions of the grammar. So now for directed acyclic graphs also we can write the syntax directed definition, and the semantic rules for this will be like this. The first one is E implies E1 plus T. So what you need to observe is whenever there is an operator, then you need to create a new node, and then the operator will be the first field of the corresponding node, and then E1 dot node, that is the left of the operator, will be the next parameter, and right of the operator will be the next parameter. So whenever there is an operator, you will be creating a new node like this. And if the corresponding production does not contain any operator, then whatever on right side, the value will be as it is copied to the LHS. So there is no change in these two expressions. And whenever there is a terminal ID and num or terminal on RHS of the production, then you need to create leaves by showing the corresponding ID and a link to the symbol table id.entry, or if it contains a value directly, then show the value directly in the corresponding node. Okay, so There are 3 points that you need to understand here for creating STD. The first point is whenever there is an operator, you need to create a new node with the help of semantic rule. And whenever there is no operator and involves variables, then copy the same node into the LHS. And whenever there are terminals, that is either a variable or a value, a constant, then you need to create leaves. If it is a variable, then provide a link to the symbol table. Otherwise, show the corresponding value in the leaf. So leaves are used to represent terminals and nodes are used to represent the operators. That is what you need to understand. And this is another variant of syntax tree, that is value number method for constructing DAGs. So directed acyclic graph can be represented or can be stored into an array like this. Please observe this array. The first entry in the array at location 1 has the identifier ID, that is I. This is I. So look at this expression, and in parallel look at this array also, because this is the directed acyclic graph representing I is equal to I plus 10, and I am showing the same table representing the same expression in the form of number value method or value number method. Okay, this is another variant of syntax tree. So what you need to understand is, in the expression, the first one is an identifier. So you need to write that identifier over here, I, and provide a link for this identifier into the symbol table. So entry for I in the symbol table. So the information of this identifier will be available in the symbol table, and we are not showing any value over here. Okay, and then the other value is a number. It is a number. So we are showing a number, and because it is a value, it is not a variable, directly showing it in the table. Okay, the values are directly shown in the table. If it is a variable, link will be provided to the symbol table. And then the operator is plus. This plus is done as I plus 10. Therefore, we are going to show the operation on the array indices. So this plus is done on I. I is stored at 1. So we'll show that in the table as 1. And then 10 is stored at position 2. So position 2. What this means is, this 3, index 3, means that you are going to take the value from 1, that is 1 is id is a link for I. So whatever value is there in I in the symbol table, get that value and substitute it over here, and then this 2 represents this position, and whatever is value available here, that will be taken over here. That means this represents I plus 10, this operation. And finally is equal to, this is going to be I is equal to this entire operation, I plus 10. So that is why I is equal to I plus 10. This equals to LHS of this equals to is I is equal to, and then the result of I plus 10 is available at 3. So it is represented over here. This means that I is equal to 3. What is 3? 3 means that I plus 10. So that is how we can represent the directed acyclic graphs in the form of value number method. So the variants of syntax tree is an important question for your examination point of view. There are two variants for the syntax trees. One is directed acyclic graph itself, and the other one is representing this directed acyclic graph in the form of an array of records. Okay, where this array of records refer to nodes by giving the integer index of the record for that node within the array, and then this integer is called value number, for the node or for the expression represented by the node. That is how we are using those indexes as uh, the representations in the array. Okay, right. And we till now we covered two types of intermediate representations. One is postfix notation, and the other one is variants of syntax tree. And this is the third one and the most important one, most widely used one, three address codes. So what is three address code? You need to understand this. In a three address code, on right hand side of the expression, you will have at most one operator. At most one operator means that you may have one operator on the right hand side, or sometimes you may not have the operator also. So for example, if this is the directed acyclic graph, then the corresponding three address codes can be represented like this. So this actually represents a plus a into b minus c plus b minus c into d. This is the expression. So what you need to represent is, you will take the temporary variables t1 t2 so on, how many are required, it depends on the corresponding expression. So use the temporary variables to store the common sub expressions or the sub expressions in the corresponding directed acyclic graph. So we'll begin with b minus c. This is the first to be evaluated. So b minus c is stored into a temporary variable t1. And then the next expression that gets evaluated is a into b minus c. Therefore, a into t1, because t1 is storing b minus c, is copied into another temporary variable t2. And then next expression that is going to be evaluated is a plus a into b minus c. So a into b minus c is already available in t2. Therefore, we take a plus t2 and we store it into another temporary variable t3. Okay. And then next sub expression that is going to be evaluated is b minus c into d. B minus c is already available in t1, therefore t1 into d is copied into t4. And finally, we perform this operation of t3 plus t4, where t3 is representing this entire expression and t4 is representing this expression. So t3 plus t4 will be t5. So this is how three address codes can be generated. Three address codes can be used to represent the sequence of operations represented by a directed acyclic graph. As you can see, directed acyclic graph is an abstract way of representing the expressions, wherein these three address codes are more nearer to codes, the code generation phase. Okay, so you'll see that various ways of representing these three address codes later. Before that, let us go through the various forms of three address instructions, as if you can understand these, then you will be easily able to convert any given expression into three address codes. So one possible way of representing three address instructions is, this is the most general way of representing binary operators. X is equal to y opz. Always remember that on right hand side you can have at most one operator. So this contains one operator on RHS of this assignment operator. So it is valid. X is equal to OPY, and this contains a single operator on RHS. So this is also valid. And this contains no operators on RHS. X is equal to Y is a valid operation. And for the control statements, you need to use go to and some pointer you are going to make use. For conditional constructs, it will be looks like this. If x go to L and if false x go to L, you can use any of these two forms. And if x relational operator y, then go to L. This is a possible three address instruction. And procedure calls can be represented like this. You can specify the parameters followed by the call, or you can use call followed by the list of parameters, or it can be like this: assignment operation followed by a call to a procedure along with the parameters. And you can use y is equal to y of I for arrays, or something like this: x of I is equal to y also, to valid notations for arrays. You can use addresses and also pointers like this as valid three address instruction. So if you can remember this slide, then it will be easy for you while converting the controller instructions into three address forms. So this is an example: a into minus b plus c. This is the first example. We'll see how to convert this a into minus b plus c into three address codes. T1 is equal to b plus c. This is the first sub expression, so we'll represent it as a temporary variable. And then T2 is equal to unary minus of b plus c. You need to represent it. And then T3 is equal to a into T2. So this is actually representing a into minus of b plus c. Let us see how to convert this for loop. For I is equal to 1, I less than or equal to 10, I plus plus, a of I is equal to x into 5. So when the expression involves an array, you need to carefully convert it into the corresponding equivalent three address instructions like this. Uh, Initially, the loop begins at I is equal to 1, and then the statement that needs to be repeated is represented with a label L. T1 is equal to x into 5. And a of I need to be converted properly. So I'm taking the base address of a, array a, into the temporary variable T2. And then to properly move the number of bytes equivalent to the size of integer, assuming that a of I representing integers, take the size of integer as a temporary variable T3, and then multiply it with the I to calculate the number of locations that you need to move along with the loop. So initially I is equal to 1, so it takes only one location move forward. T4 is equal to T3 into I, and T5 is equal to T2 plus T4, where T2 is the base address of the array and T4 is the amount of memory that you are going to consider for taking the value. That means if I is equal to 1, this takes a of 1. If I is equal to 2, this takes a of 2. If I is equal to 3, this takes a of 3, and so on like that. So T5 represents the corresponding address of the value which you are considering, and take out that value. Star T5 is equal to T1. Okay, so you will assign that T1, which is x into 5, into the star T5. Okay, and then increment the I value by 1. So if I is less than or equal to 10, then go to L. The loop repeats. So this is how we can convert the loops into three address instructions. Okay, so you need to practice this kind of examples because in examination it will be asked to represent the given control expression in the form of three address codes. So you practice these two examples more times. And coming to the representations of three address codes, there are three types of representations we can use, which are also called as data structures for three address codes: quadruples, triples, and indirect triples. In quadruples, all these forms are going to be table representations only, or arrays only. Quadruples contains four fields representing operator. First field represents operator. Second field represents the first argument of the operator. Third field represent second argument of the operator, and finally the temporary variable. Result shows that the temporary variable in which this argument 1 op argument 2 is stored. Okay, so in the expressions that we are converting, there may be uh, either unary operations or binary operations. If it is a binary operation, then both argument 1 and argument 2 will be present. If it is a unary operator, then argument 2 will be empty. Okay. In triples, these temporary variables will not be used. Instead of that, we will make use of the positions of the table as references to point to the corresponding sub-expressions. And indirect tuples maintains a separate list of pointers to the corresponding triples. So we'll see these three kinds of data structures for representing the three address codes. Okay, let us understand one by one now. And this is the expression I am considering: b into minus c plus b into minus c. This is the expression, and the corresponding three address codes will be like this. I'll take b minus c because it is the common sub expression. B minus c, minus c is the common sub expression. Minus c will be represented as t1, and then b into t1 is represented as t2, and t3 is going to be minus c, the second one, and t4 is again going to be b into t3. t5 is equal to t2 plus t4, and finally a is equal to t5. Okay, so assuming that the expression is a is equal to b into minus c plus b into minus c. Minus c is represented as a temporary variable. You can ask me like why it is taken as t1 is equal to minus c and t3 is equal to minus c two times. It is one possible representation, but not so efficient. I just took one random representation. We will discuss about the optimization techniques also. This is not the optimized code. You need to apply optimization on this also. So your doubt is correct only. Minus c is stored into t1 as well as t3 also. So because of that random representations, this is not going to be an efficient three address code representation. So we are not talking about the optimizations here. We will discuss about optimizations in the fifth unit. Okay, so as of this, at this point, you understand that this is converted into a raw three address code which is not optimized. Further, it needs to be optimized. Okay, so try to understand how these three address codes will be represented as quadruples, triples, and indirect triples at this slide. Okay, so don't think about the optimization or efficiency of these three address codes. Okay, now let us start with the quadruple representation of these three address codes. So what is the first expression? It is t1 is equal to minus c. So what you need to do is, minus c is a unary operator. So you will represent that operation minus over here, and the first argument is c. And argument 2 is empty because minus c is a unary operation. And where this is stored, the result is stored into t1. So the temporary variable t1 is written over here. Okay, and the second expression is b into t1, and it is stored into t2. So the operation is into, this is star, the first argument is b, second argument is t1, and it is stored into t2. Okay, and then this is also represented as minus c. The operation is minus, argument 1 is c, argument 2 is empty because it is unary operator, and the result is copied to t3. Okay, and then it is b into t3, result is copied to t4. B into t3, result is copied to t4. Then t2 plus t4, result is copied to t5. So what is t2 plus t4, result is copied to t5. And finally a is equal to t5. So the assignment operation, and only one argument is there, t5, it is copied to a. Okay, so this is how quadruples are used to store the three address codes. Okay, it contains four fields: operator, argument 1, argument 2, and result. Now let us see triples representation of the same code. If you observe in triples, there is no result field here. Instead of using this result field, what we consider is we consider the position indexes of the array 0, 1, 2, 3, 5 to represent the corresponding expression. Okay, so what is the first expression? On right side it is minus c. So minus c is represented here, and because there is no result, we consider 0 to represent this minus c. So whenever you represent minus c as sub expression, make use of this index 0. So the second expression is b into t1. Okay, so b into t1 is minus c. Minus c is represented by the index 0. Therefore, argument 2 becomes 0. These parenthesized indexes represent the sub-expressions. So minus c is represented by the index 0. So this argument 2 is going to be 0 to represent that sub-expression minus c. Okay, and then again we are representing minus c as another sub-expression, and this time we use b into 2 for this. Okay, and finally plus operator is t2 plus t4. So where this t2 is available, it is available at position 1, and t4 is available at position 3. Therefore operation is plus. The first result is available at 1, second result is available at 3. So we mentioned both the indexes over here. And finally a is equal to t5. So the operation is equal to, and the first argument is a, and from where you need to get the value, from fourth index. Okay, you need to observe this difference between this and this. Argument 1 is t5 here, wherein argument 2 is the index here in triples. Observe the difference from quadruples and triples. And if you understand triples, indirect triples are very easy to understand. It is going to be same as triples. The representation is going to be same, and in addition to this triple representation, we maintain all these indexes as a list of pointers, separate list of pointers like this. Okay, so 0 is a pointer to expression minus c, 1 is a pointer to expression b into minus c, 2 is a pointer to minus c again, 3 is a pointer to b into minus c, 4 is a pointer to b into minus c plus b into minus c, and 5 is a pointer to a is equal to b into minus c plus b into minus c. Okay, so just maintain a separate list of pointers for the triples that makes up the indirect triples. Okay, so these are the three possible representations of the uh, three address codes. Okay, so three address codes are commonly generated for the given expression, and then you can use any of these three representations for storing the information of these three address codes. Okay, now this is a exercise for you. uh, Try to write the three address codes for this expression a is equal to minus c into b plus minus c into d. So first write up that three address codes representation. You can use any random representation, uh, ensuring that RHS should not contain more than one operator. Okay, so don't bother about the optimization or efficiency. You just need to represent this expression in the form of three address codes, and then use that three address codes to represent uh, in the form of quadruples and triples. I'm not asking about indirect triples, because if you know how to write triples, indirect triples is going to be very easy. Okay, so this is a task for you. Please practice this example. Okay, that's all for today. uh, so today we covered the first two topics of the fourth unit, uh, and We will cover the remaining topics in our next class. Thank you all.